you're not able to share screen?
Yes, Prabhu. On it.
Can you please post the recording of last week's meeting, because it's not been posted, and Leelabai Rukmini Mataji wants to see the recording. Okay, Rudradeep Nimai Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
See, after each class, could you just post the recording immediately? Because otherwise, devotees who want to see the recording are not able to see it. So there's a request for last week's meeting is not being posted.
It's posted on YouTube.
On YouTube, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just send me the link. Just send me the link. Or just on the chat, just send the Mayapur Institute link. Okay, it's on Mayapur Institute. What is
Mayapur Institute? It's posted 6 days ago.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So right now it's on live, and then as soon as we finish, it gets uploaded to YouTube.
Leelabai Rukmini Mataji, is that okay? Or do you need the link also? I guess she's not at her table or something. Okay, meanwhile, you can share screen and we'll start. Yeah, is this where we stopped? No. Does anyone remember where we stopped exactly? Because I didn't use my book last time. I was just looking at the screen.
We have to start from here itself. What here it has been shared. No? Same place.
Okay, see, Srila Prabhupada agreed to see several.
Yes, yes, yes.
Matthew, would you like to read?
Yes, I can.
So please go ahead.
Yes. Srila Prabhupada agreed to see several professor acquaintances of Ravindra Swarupas. Having received his BA in philosophy from the University of Pennsylvania and his MA from Temple University, Ravindra Swarupa was now pursuing a PhD from Temple. He had once given up academics as part of the world of Maya and had fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada had encouraged him to return for a further degree. While in Philadelphia, Srila Prabhupada had spoken out against the process of inductive reasoning. On one morning walk, Ravindra Swarupa had said, Prabhupada, the same criticism that you just made of induction was also made by John Stuart Mill and Bertrand Russell, but they became skeptics. They say, therefore, there is no knowledge at all. That is another nonsense. Srila Prabhupada had replied, that is also speculation. Because I have failed, therefore there is no knowledge. Dr. Yogesh Patel, a Western-educated Indian-born scholar of Buddhism and Mayavada Hinduism, taught in the religion department at Temple University. Accompanied by two graduate students, Dr. Patel dropped by one afternoon while Srila Prabhupada was talking in his room with several of his disciples. Ravindra Swarupa made the introductions. Prabhupada, so you are teaching Hinduism? Dr. Patel, yes. Prabhupada, what is that Hinduism? Dr. Patel, I don't know. You tell me what Hinduism is. Prabhupada, you don't know? You are teaching Hinduism, but you don't know what it is. This is our Dr. Swarupa Damodara. He is also a PhD. Let us get his opinion on this. Turning to Swarupa Damodara, what do you think of that? He is teaching, but he does not know. Swarupa Damodara. Cheater. Srila Prabhupada, that is called cheater. Prabhupada, so you have heard his judgment that you are a cheater? Dr. Patel became angry and raised his voice at Srila Prabhupada. The professor and Srila Prabhupada were immediately into a battle. Dr. Patel, you teach me. If I say I don't know what is religion, then you teach me, Prabhupada. A spiritual master is not your servant. First you become shaven-headed like my students, then I will teach you. You have to offer your obeisances and surrender to the spiritual master. Then he will reveal the truth. Dr. Patel replied that he did offer his obeisances to Prabhupada when he first entered the room. Prabhupada. Then my first instruction to you is to stop this cheating. By now, both Srila Prabhupada and Dr. Patel were speaking with raised voices. Most of the devotees were shocked, speechless. Some of them, like Brahmananda Swami, felt compelled to somehow end the meeting. Prabhupada, you ask me what is religion? My reply is Sarva Dharman Parityajya. Krishna says religion means Sharanam Vraja, fully surrender. Dr. Patel, what do you mean by surrender? Prabhupada, you don't know the meaning of surrender? Give me a dictionary, let's see. Dr. Patel yelling, no, I want the Sanskrit and etymological meaning of surrender. Prabhupada, you don't want a spiritual master, you want a Sanskrit teacher. We cannot waste our time anymore. Brahmananda Swami saw this as his cue. He leaned over to Dr. Patel and asked him to leave before you get offensive. Dr. Patel and Brahmananda Swami then rose and left the room together. Srila Prabhupada remained shaking with anger. The senior devotees looked over at Ravindra Swarupa reproachfully. How could he bring such a man to see Prabhupada? Ravindra Swarupa was appalled and frightened. Never before had anyone been Prabhupada explode in such anger. After staying up all night, Ravindra Swarupa approached Prabhupada the next morning with a prepared apology. Srila Prabhupada, he began, I'm really sorry that I brought that professor to see you last night. I had no idea he was such a rascal. Srila Prabhupada looked up in surprise. Oh, he said, that's all right. He paused and then added with quiet satisfaction. At least he was chastised. Dr. Thompson Hopkins, another teacher.
Can I just pause for a few minutes?
Yes,
I mean, to be chastised by Prabhupada is also not a good ordinary fortune. It's extraordinary fortune. So when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would sometimes, due to his absorption in the Lord, sometimes he would take on the mood of different incarnations. Once he took on the mood of, he took on the mood of Narasimhadev as far as I remember. And he ran outside. Was it Narasimhadev? Anyway, and then the people who were standing outside got so frightened and began to run away. So Vrindavan Das Thakur, I think it's Vrindavan Das Thakur. Anyway, he comments that whoever saw the Lord in that state were greatly blessed. So like that, even to get chastised by Prabhupada is also a great blessing. Please go ahead.
Dr. Thomas Hopkins, another teacher of Hinduism, came to see Prabhupada, but in a much different mood. From the beginning, they experienced an immediate rapport. Dr. Hopkins asked Prabhupada the relationship of Bhagavad Gita to Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada replied that the Bhagavatam was like the graduate study of the Gita, beginning where the Gita had left off. Dr. Hopkins, if someone was going to collect a very small section of your work, say 1 or 2 verses, what would you want them to collect? That is stated in 2 verses. Prabhupada replied, Dharmasya hi apavargasya, and he had the translation read. All occupational engagements, dharmas, are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, dharma, should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Prabhupada had the purport read, and he expanded on it further, explaining how people are only after material gain, neglecting the real purpose of life. Dr. Hopkins, do you think then that this message is the most important message that you have to convey? Prabhupada, that is the most important message because you are not this material body. Suppose you have got this shirt. So if you simply try to maintain this shirt, is that a very good intelligence without taking care of your person? Similarly, we are spirit soul and the body is just like this dress. So in the whole material world, everyone is engaged to take care of the body. Nobody knows what is spirit's soul, what is his need. Dr. Hopkins seemed pleased to hear such a broad explanation of Vaishnavism. When he asked about Shiva, Prabhupada explained that although Lord Shiva should not be considered equal to Lord Vishnu, he was the best Vaishnava, the chief devotee of Vishnu, and he could be worshipped as such. And Lord Rama, Srila Prabhupada explained that Rama was an incarnation of Krishna. Professor Hopkins was pleased to hear this. Prabhupada explained that Madhva, Ramanuja, and Vishnu Swami were all big acharyas. Dr. Hopkins then asked about Tukarama, the saint of Maharashtra. Prabhupada, yes, Tukarama accepted Vishnu as supreme. He accepted the process of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Sankirtana, and he accepted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his guru. So there is no difference between Tukarama and Chaitanya. Dr. Hopkins, so Lord Vithala and Krishna are the same? Prabhupada, Lord Vithala is Vishnu. Dr. Hopkins, and the Alvars of Tamil Nadu, Adivasi, you accept their teachings also? So the real question is between Vaishnava and others. Prabhupada, yes, that is the question, Vaishnava and non-Vaishnava. The actual difference is personalist and impersonalist. Dr. Hopkins, you would see the worshippers of Shiva as impersonalists? Prabhupada, yes, impersonalist. Shankaracharya said that ultimately the absolute truth is impersonal and one can imagine a personal form for the benefit of the worshipper. When Dr. Hopkins pointed out that some of the Shiva worshippers seem to be personalists, Prabhupada explained the real mentality of the Shaivites. According to Shankara, now I am a devotee, said Prabhupada. But as soon as I become perfect, I become one. That is their theory. In the preliminary state, when I am not perfect, I am worshipping some imaginary form of God. But when I become perfect, there is no need of worshipping. I become one. As a scholar, Dr. Hopkins was visibly pleased to hear the authentic philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Prabhupada mentioned the Smarta Brahmanas as also being impersonalists, Dr. Hopkins was surprised. It would be very difficult to pick them out, said Prabhupada. Most of the so-called Vaishnavas are impersonalists. Dr. Hopkins, so the deciding test as to whether one is a serious devotee or not is not only whether one is a devoted now, but that he sees the goal as perpetual devotion. Prabhupada, yes, he is Nityak Yukta, that means perpetually. Dr. Hopkins, considering this criterion, inquired about the position of Sri Aurobindo, who seemed to be beyond impersonalism. Prabhupada agreed. He says that above the Mayavada philosophy, there is something else, Prabhupada explained, that is bhakti. But Aurobindo could not understand because he did not take education from realized persons. He wanted to realize by himself. Dr. Hopkins. So this problem was the effort to do this on his own, Prabhupada. Yes, he did not go through the Guru Parampara. Therefore, It will take a long time. Dr. Hopkins finally had to leave and thank Prabhupada for his time and wisdom. Why don't you join us also? Asked Prabhupada. The whole human society should join us. Dr. Hopkins replied that he had been a friend of the devotees for many years and suspected that in the end he might end up as a sannyasi. Prabhupada pointed out that sannyasa didn't mean a change of dress, but rather giving everything to Krishna. July 15, 1975. Srila Prabhupada had a direct flight from Philadelphia to San Francisco. He and Upendra sat in the first class section, while Brahmananda Swami, Harikesha, and Pradyumna traveled economy class. Vishakha Devidasi had also come to photograph Srila Prabhupada. After the plane had reached cruising altitude, a uniformed gentleman emerged from the cabin. Immediately, he caught sight of Srila Prabhupada sitting by the window and walked over. When he leaned over and asked Prabhupada how he was, Prabhupada saw that the man wanted to talk. So he asked Upendra to get up and give the gentleman his seat. You are the captain, Prabhupada surmised. No, the man replied, I am a flight supervisor come to overlook the pilot and the crew. Would it be all right if I asked you a philosophical question? Prabhupada nodded, apparently pleased. Is everything created by God? Srila Prabhupada said yes, and quoted the Vedanta Sutra Janmadhyasya Yataha. Anything in existence, Prabhupada said, has its origin in God. Then what is evil? The flight supervisor asked. Is evil also God creation? For God, there is not good or evil. Prabhupada explained, everything is good. Goodness is God's frontage, and evil is God's back portion. Taking this example, the chest or the back of the body are equal. It is not that when there is some pain in the backside, I don't care for it. I simply take care of it when there is pain in the chest. No, although it is the backside, it's important as the front side. So evil and good are also of the same importance? No, for God, there is nothing evil. Just like for the sun, there is no darkness. But for us, there is light and darkness. If you keep your back to the sun, you will find darkness. And if you face the sun, there is no darkness. We create darkness as soon as we change our position. If instead of remaining in front of God, I keep God on the back, then there is darkness. Otherwise, there is no question of darkness. But in the sun, as it is, there is no such darkness. Therefore, God is all good. But for us, when we forget good, that is evil. And when we are in God consciousness always, then everything is good. Is that all right? The man seemed to understand and respectfully accepted the answer. He was about to ask another question when a well-dressed but somewhat drunken passenger came up to them and spoke. Srila Prabhupada looked up at the man and asked, Are you afraid of death? The intoxicated man stammered, sobered, and walked up. The flight supervisor inquired again, taking his meeting with Srila Prabhupada as a rare opportunity. Can you tell me how one can become peaceful? He asked. Srila Prabhupada began quoting Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam, and signaling Vishakha asked for a copy of the Gita. The devotees quickly consulted, but no one had a Bhagavad Gita. When Prabhupada heard this, he became angry, although containing his feelings in the presence of his guest. He then explained to the man that one had to have knowledge of God as the supreme controller, the supreme enjoyer, and the best friend of everyone. Only then would one have peace. Out of foolishness, Prabhupada said, we are claiming the land is our property. Therefore, there is no peace. But actually, God is the proprietor. Both Srila Prabhupada and the flight supervisor enjoyed their talk, and as the flight supervisor excused himself, he heartily shook Prabhupada's hand. Prabhupada called for Pradyumna, his eyes glowing in transcendental anger. He reprimanded Upendra and Pradyumna for not having a copy of Bhagavad Gita. They should have one with them at all times. Pradyumna offered that although he didn't have Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, he just happened to be carrying an edition by another author. This infuriated Prabhupada even more. He then ordered Upendra never to travel again without carrying 3 books, Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the first volume of Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Berkeley, July 15, 1975. Within less than 2 weeks, Prabhupada had traveled from West Coast to East Coast and back. This was his first visit to ISKCON Berkeley's recently acquired headquarters, a large church complex, and as usual, hundreds of devotees from many Western centers had converged to meet him. His arrival address specifically dealt with the position of the Guru. Only unto one with unflinching faith in Krishna and Guru, he explained, is the essence of Vedic wisdom revealed. Outsiders may think that the Guru is very puffed up, said Prabhupada, and he is sitting and taking respect from the disciple. But the fact is that they are to be taught like that, how to offer respect to the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada repeatedly encountered this misunderstanding. A year ago, in Paris, he had been heckled by radical students who envied his sitting on an elevated seat. And in America, the reporters often portrayed him as enjoying material comforts provided by his disciples. But Prabhupada maintained that despite a plethora of charlatans bringing disrepute to the word Guru, anyone sincerely desiring to learn transcendental science had to go to a bona fide Guru, the representative of God. A Guru's business, said Srila Prabhupada, is to protect the subordinate disciples from fall down. Just like I'm traveling all over the world twice, thrice in a year, my duty is to see that my disciples who have accepted me as Guru may not fall down. That is my anxiety. Now, how can one become Guru and the representative of Krishna? Everyone will say, I am representative of Krishna, I am Guru. No, the real thing is enunciated by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who says, Amara Agyaya Guru Hana Tara Ei Dasa, Tara Ei Desha. You just become Guru on my order. So Guru means he who is carrying out the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not self-made Guru. Srila Prabhupada said that sometimes people gave him much credit for having done a wonderful thing for the whole world. But he confessed, I do not know that I am a wonderful man, but I know one thing, that I am speaking what Krishna has spoken. That's all. I am not making any addition or alteration. I am presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. This credit I can take. Prabhupada continued to stress that the Guru must repeat the message of Krishna. If a so-called Guru wanted to be a cheater, that was a different thing. There would always be cheaters and people who wanted to be cheated. Usually, such gurus cheated by accepting disciples without ordering them to stop sinful acts. If I say that you can do all nonsense, Prabhupada said, simply take this mantra and give me $125. They will like. So I would have collected millions of dollars if I would have cheated like that. But I do not want that. I want one student who follows my instructions. I don't want millions. Ekas chandras tamohanti na cha tara sahasrashah. If there is one moon in the sky that is sufficient for illumination, there is no need of millions of stars. My position is that I want to see that at least one disciple has become a pure devotee. Of course, I have got many sincere and pure devotees. That is my good luck. but I would have been satisfied if I could find out only one. There is no need of millions of stars. Due to zoning restrictions, the devotees were not allowed to use the Berkeley Temple as a residence. But since no suitable rooms were immediately available in the neighborhood, the devotees decided to accommodate Srila Prabhupada and his personal staff in the temple for the few days of his visit, hoping the authorities wouldn't find out. But on the first night at 2 a.m., the police came by to check. Srila Prabhupada was already up working at his Bhagavatam translation. When the police knocked loudly on the outside door near his room, young Mike, who was to receive initiation in a few days, had been posted as a guard. He opened the door and three flashlights shone into his face. The officers entered and showed their credentials. You are not supposed to be sleeping in here, one of them said roughly. I wasn't, said Mike. Come on, we saw you in your sleeping bag. No, Mike protested. I was just lying there because I am guarding my spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada could easily hear the disturbance just outside his room. Other devotees who were spending the night in the building with Prabhupada came out of their rooms and tried reasoning with the officers about the special occasion of the spiritual master's visit. One of the policemen began roaming around, checking in corners with his flashlight, opening doors. Now all the devotees in the building, about half a dozen, were standing with the policemen in the hall outside Prabhupada's room. You have to scroll. Krishna. Where's the old man? One of the policemen asked. Bahulashwa, the temple president, requested them not to disturb Srila Prabhupada, but the policemen made no attempt at politeness. They were, in fact, overtly nasty. One policeman banged on the window to Prabhupada's room. Don't disturb him, Bahulashwa requested. He is a very elderly man. He is not sleeping. These are the hours in which he writes, and all these men are his personal entourage. They are staying here to help him. We are not violating the rules. Suddenly, one of the policemen opened Prabhupada's door and shone his light in on Prabhupada's face. All three policemen peered in, while Srila Prabhupada looked up at them, concerned and detached. The policeman shone his flashlight into the corners of Prabhupada's dimly lit room. No one said anything, and after about 10 seconds, they shut the door. The police officers and the devotees continued arguing, the devotees contending that they were not using building as a residence, the police citing infractions and taking down notes, warning that they would be back. They finally left. The incident had constituted about a half-hour interruption of Prabhupada's work. But as the building became quiet again, Prabhupada continued translating the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam and speaking his purports into the dictating machine. Prabhupada agreed to hold a press conference. He welcomed regular opportunities to address the press because even though their stories were often negative or dwelt on controversies, whatever truth the paper printed generally overweighed the damaging reports. The holy name of Krishna always appeared, and usually there would be mention of Prabhupada's preaching or of Bhagavad Gita. Personal details about Prabhupada were generally not offensive. He no longer expected the press to print much of Krishna consciousness philosophy, although occasionally some philosophy appeared. He would often request reporters to please report accurately and not mispresent or skip over what he had said. The reporters, however, seemed to have a fascination for the trivial. In 1968, a reporter in Montreal had dwelt on Prabhupada's casual shoes. A hush puppy high priest. Nevertheless, for Prabhupada, press interviews and press conferences were a way of preaching. The press conference was held in the temple and was attended by about a dozen reporters and photographers. Brahmananda Swami had the reporters write their questions on a piece of paper so that one of the devotees could read them to Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked the photographers not to take pictures during the conference since it would divert people's attention. Devotee, Srila Prabhupada, would you comment on opposition to the Hare Krishna movement in this country? Prabhupada, why should they oppose? What's the reason? If they are Christian or Jewish religious men, so we are advocating you chant the holy name of God. So why should there be objection? Is there any reason for such objection? What is the objection? Devotee. Some of the objections are that the followers of Hare Krishna sect are on the streets or in the airports bothering people. Prabhupada, airport itself is a botheration. So much sound, so much accident. So why this little botheration they cannot tolerate? That means intolerance. It is full of botheration. And because we are chanting, they are very much disturbed. We don't chant in the airport, but we ask people that here is a very good book, you will benefit. If you like, you can take. So what is the wrong there? Tell me, what is the wrong? If I give you something very nice, is that wrong? You read any book. We have got 50 books and you find out any fault in that. If we are disturbing some bad in literature, if we are distributing some bad literature which is against the social welfare, then you can object. But you see, bring all our books here and you will see. Any page you open, you will find something good. Why are you denying to distribute such literature for the benefit of the people in general? What is the wrong there? Devotee. One of the things that people say is that the devotees are asking for donations, not just distributing books, but asking for money. That's a bother. Prabhupada. But he pays. If he feels botheration, why does he pay? One who feels botheration does not pay. But one who thinks that here is a nice book, then he says, all right, let me take it. Why you take this botheration? If it is botheration, how they are purchasing? They are paying their money, hard-earned money. Do you think they are bothered and at the same time they pay? Prabhupada's sensible remark made the reporters laugh. Now they began questioning him directly. Reporter, what will happen to the movement in the United States when you die? Prabhupada, I will never die. Devotees, Jai, Haribol. Reporter, why does the Hare Krishna movement not engage in social protest?
You missed one sentence.
Okay, sorry. Prabhupada, I shall leave from my books and you will utilize. Reporter, why does the Hare Krishna movement not engage in social protest? Prabhupada, we are the best social workers. People are fools and rascals, and we are teaching them nice idea of God consciousness. We are the best social workers. We will stop all crimes. What is your social work? Producing hippies and criminals? That is not social work. Social work means the population must be very peaceful, wise, intelligent, and God conscious. First class men. That is social work. If you produce some 4th class, 5th class, 10th class of men, what is social work? We are not producing that. Just see, here is a first class man. They do not have any bad habit, illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. They are all young men. They are not addicted to all these things. This is social work. When a reporter asked about the political effects of the Hare Krishna movement, Prabhupada said, if this God consciousness is spread, then everyone will be brilliantly qualified. Recalling a discussion from his morning walk on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley, he added, The students are studying psychology, but the result is that they are falling down from the tower in disappointment, and they have protected with the glass. Bahulashva explained
This is
further.
very fun. This is very funny actually how Prabhupada says, but Prabhupada is very sharp. He observes everything and he makes the right remarks at the right time to the right people. For example, here he says how if it is a botheration to purchase, why are people purchasing? I think the same classic argument we even hear these days also, that, oh, we're disturbing and all these things, but we're also selling a lot of books. So which means that if people are bothered, why are they buying the books? So Prabhupada already had an answer, almost 50 years ago for this question that comes up even today. And Prabhupada has a very, very, very interesting sense of humor or irony, where he says that the students are studying psychology, but the result is that they're falling down from the tower in disappointment, and they're protected with glass. So if you're a student of psychology, the students are meant to be wholesome and know how to deal in life. But then Prabhupada is asking, why are they falling down from the tower in disappointment? And to prevent that, they have protected with glass. So these are people who are supposed to know about the workings of the mind and how to deal with the mind. If they themselves are committing suicide, what hope is there? Please go ahead.
Bahulashva explained further what Prabhupada meant. In the bell tower on the Berkeley campus, students in the 60s would jump from the tower to kill themselves. So they put glass there to stop the students from jumping. So Prabhupada was explaining that this is their education, that after getting their education, they have to commit suicide. Brahmananda. Srila Prabhupada, one pressman wanted to know, what is this Ratha Yatra festival? Why is it going on over here in the Western world? Prabhupada, if God is the proprietor of everything, he is also the proprietor of the Western world. Is there any dispute? If you say God is the proprietor of the Western world, what is wrong there? So if the Western world has forgotten God and he comes to remind them, what is the wrong? Reporter. But what is the purpose of the large carts and other things you use? Prabhupada. Large cart means God is very great. He requires very great car. The devotees laugh. Why should he go in a small car? Prabhupada continued, speaking until all questions were answered. Now, whatever the reporters would write was up to them, but Prabhupada had used the occasion for glorifying Lord Krishna and explaining his movement, whether press conference, public festival, private conversation, or translating, his purpose was the same. During the morning walk on the Berkeley campus, Prabhupada pronounced that the nuclear war was inevitable. Devotees had brought up the topic of proliferation of atomic weapons. Russia has so many weapons, China has so many weapons, the United States has so much. Prabhupada, everyone now, India also, devotee. They are all afraid of using them. Prabhupada, they must use it. That is nature's arrangement, chuckling. That you all die, that is nature's arrangement, Kamala Krishna Goswami. When someone gets some power, he wants to try it out. Just like there was that demon, thought Shiva gave him power so that anyone's head he touched would fall off. Prabhupada is. Just like in your country, there are so many cars, so that a poor man like me has car always, not an inch move on leg. But because there are so many cars, naturally they must be used. Similarly, there are so many weapons now that must be used. That is the natural sequence. They must use it. Bahulashva. That is why they have wars, just to use the weapons, use up the weapons. Prabhupada. Oh yes, devotee. The only difficulty is that for one person to use the atomic weapon, that means it would be the entire waste of mankind. So everyone is afraid of using the ultimate. Prabhupada. Anyway, they must be used. There is no doubt about it. Therefore, we can say there will be war. This is no astrology. It is a natural conclusion. Devotee. That will be total distraction. Prabhupada. Well, total or partial. That we shall see. But they must be used. Devotee. Under the threat of nuclear war, wouldn't Krishna consciousness be more easy to spread? Prabhupada. No. Threat is already there, but they are such fools that they are not afraid of the threat. The threat is already there. Everyone will die. That is the problem. But who is caring for this? They are avoiding this. They cannot take any anti-measures. Yaduvara. So it will take a war to bring them to their senses a bit. Prabhupada. No, war is already going on, but they are so senseless that they will not come to this. They are so rascal. Therefore, they are described as mudha, all rascals. Tamal Krishna. It is very hard to preach to these fools, Prabhupada. Prabhupada, no. Chant Hare Krishna. That will be sufficient. Srila Prabhupada had rarely been so conclusive about nuclear war. Earlier in the year, on a walk in Mayapur, he had discussed how there would be a World War III, and that talk had become a sensation throughout ISKCON. But before, he had always offered the alternative. If the people of the world would take to Krishna consciousness, then the cumulative karma could be reversed. But now he said it was inevitable. While in Berkeley, Srila Prabhupada received a visit from Yogi Bhajan, founder of the HHH Foundation, Swami Chidananda, president of the Divine Life Society, and Jain leader Swami Sushil Muni, president of the World Fellowship of Religion. Swami Sushil wore a white turban and across his mouth a white mask in the tradition of the non-violent Jains, who tried to avoid killing even airborne microbes. Yogi Bhajan, dressed in typical Sikh fashion of white turban and white loose-fitting garments, was accompanied by a few of his Western disciples, similarly attired. Visits from various Swamis and Yogis were not uncommon for Srila Prabhupada. Even when he did not agree with a particular philosophy, he was always the cordial host, pleasantly receiving guests in his simple quarters. In Hawaii, Yogi Bhajan had also visited Srila Prabhupada to invite him to his Unity of Man conference, which many sadhus were already scheduled to attend. Srila Prabhupada had spoken sternly, pointing out that simply gathering people at a meeting was not unity. Real unity could be achieved only if the participants of the meeting agreed to accept the authorized science of God in the revealed scriptures. Now they had come to invite him to a second Unity of Man conference. Swami Sushil and Swami Chidananda were particularly enthusiastic in praising Srila Prabhupada and his ISKCON. Your movement is something different, said Swami Chidananda. It's all over the world, and you have so many thousands of people all over the world. We can't describe it. It's so amazing, and in this age, how wonderfully it has been done. Without God's mercy, nothing could have been done. That 6 lakhs of magazines have come out and had been distributed in 1 month. It's amazing. Swami Sushil added, you have established the same principles without any change here in a modern way. In Bengal, without your ashrama, we couldn't have done anything. When we know there is an ashrama of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, we don't need to worry about anything, where to stay. What strikes me is that we don't compromise anywhere. They mentioned the horrible sin of cow slaughter, and Srila Prabhupada told how his movement was protecting cows in New Vrindavan. When Swami Sushil asked how Prabhupada interested the young people in God, Prabhupada gave the example that the most popular sweet shop in Delhi was the one where everything was made with pure ghee. If the thing is good, Prabhupada said, then there won't be a shortage of customers. He further pointed out that his teachings were based purely on Bhagavad Gita, surrender to Krishna. When Swami Sushil asked how Prabhupada got his followers to take shelter of Krishna, Prabhupada replied, it's God who did it. God says, Mahamekam Sharanam Raja. So that is our duty, just to take shelter of him. Lord Chaitanya says, Yare dekha tare kaha Krishna upadesha. That is, whoever you meet, just preach the teachings of Krishna as in the Bhagavad Gita. I don't have any upadesha, instructions. It's just Krishna's upadesha. We are all foolish. We can't have any upadesha. So what are the teachings of Krishna? We just keep on saying them. Krishna says, do like that, and that's what we do. So this is our secret. I do this, and that's what I teach to these people. I'm totally against manufactured religion. Evam parampara praptam, just as Krishna says. In reply to Swami Sushil's questions of how people could be brought together, Prabhupada quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that lists many races of world and explains that all of them can be purified by taking shelter of Krishna's pure divinity. Prabhupada's guests again invited him to their conference, and Swami Sushil added, we are very glad to meet you today. We would like to call you sometime in our meeting of Yoga Dharma. We'll come, said Prabhupada. What about your fellowship? It's called World Fellowship of Religion, said Swami Chidananda. Yogiji has made this Unity of Man conference, but we invited him, said Yogi Bhajan, referring to the previous invitation. Swami Chidananda, but now you are having the second one. Yogi Bhajan, yes, the second meeting is in Mexico. We will call him then as well. Srila Prabhupada smiled and said, I told you before, there is not going to be any unity. This candid remark made them laugh. You say, said Swami Chidananda, remembering Prabhupada's analysis, that until everyone is God-minded, until then, when God will desire, said Yogi Bhajan, then everyone will become God-minded. What's the great deal about it? God himself says, said Srila Prabhupada, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. There is suffering. You cannot stay in this world. You have to leave. The main problem is birth, old age, disease, and death. So we are not anxious to adjust these things here, but these are the real problems. What can we do about birth, old age, disease, and death? Asked Swami Chidananda. Srila Prabhupada continued preaching Bhagavad Gita without overtly disagreeing. Prabhupada's guests inquired and listened with respect, considering him a great spiritual leader, potent in spreading Hindu Dharma. He is great, said Yogi Bhajan. That's what I want to learn, how he can do that. The conversation turned, and Prabhupada mentioned that Yogi Bhajan was from the Sikh community, which is famous for its brave fighters. When the British people were defeated, said Srila Prabhupada, it was by the Sikh people. I have seen it. It's due to the Sikhs only. The Sikhs are Kshatriyas. Some of them are Brahmanas, Brahmana Kshatriyas. Swami Sushil. Yes, I said to some of my students that you go to Prabhupada and he'll make you Brahmana Kshatriyas. Prabhupada. Yes, let's cooperate like that. You take the work of Kshatriyas and we take the work of Brahmanas. For Brahmanas, we need brain, and for Kshatriyas, we need strength. As they spoke about non-violence, Srila Prabhupada argued that if one does not become God conscious, then he will undoubtedly be committing himsa or violence. Yogi Bhajan. Yes, when when they come to their senses, then they remember God. Prabhupada laughing. Here in the West, there is only himsa, nothing else. Prabhupada's guests laughed with him. Afterward, they took some photographs and Srila Prabhupada invited them along with some of his disciples to sit and take Krishna Prasadam together. Srila Prabhupada requested his guests to attend the San Francisco Ratha Yatra to be held the next day, and they agreed. July 20, 1975. This was not only the largest ISKCON Ratha Yatra ever, but also the largest gathering of devotees to date, larger even than the international gathering at Mayapur earlier that year. Preparations at the festival site had expanded to include prasadam booths, treaty paraphernalia displays, souvenirs, and Prabhupada's books. Thousands joined the more than 800 devotees in procession through Golden Gate Park. Because the builders of the carts had decided to make steel wheels instead of the usual wooden ones, difficulty arose. Srila Prabhupada had warned them, this is your American disease, always changing. Do not change the old design, but they had already done it. Riding in Subhadra's cart, which had wooden wheels, Srila Prabhupada experienced no personal inconvenience. The other two carts, however, did not fare so well. They began to vibrate so severely that support beams had to be added to the spokes during the procession. Soon the wheels became misshapen and they creaked and rattled as though about to collapse. But somehow, after much difficulty, all three carts completed the course. In the midst of the Ratha Yatra activities, one of the devotees asked Srila Prabhupada if he had ever attended the Ratha Yatra festival in Jagannath Puri. No, Prabhupada replied, I was having my own Ratha Yatra.
Okay, so with that, we come to the end of this chapter. I want to say a few things. One is that we see how Prabhupada is dealing with these three men from a different system of, from different organizations for promoting spirituality. But Prabhupada is, we see how Prabhupada is very indifferent to what they're doing. In fact, he says how there cannot be, what about Prabhupada smiles and says that unity of man conference. I told you before, there's not going to be any unity. So Prabhupada is, I mean, as a matter of fact, he just presents that Krishna consciousness is the only solution which would work. And he's indifferent to anything else that anybody is trying, and neither does he endorse it, no, either implicitly, explicitly, nothing. He just dismisses it off and dismisses them as if they are of not real significance. But you could say, okay, they have so many followers and thousands and whatever, but Prabhupada is not bothered about it. He just doesn't, he dismisses it of not, he dismisses it as if it is of not any consequence, which is the truth actually. That the real point is that unless one comes to the platform of pure devotional service, one is on the material platform. Whether it is rather, it could be, you could say, some people could argue saying it is Sattvaguna, so what? It is still a material platform. So Prabhupada is indifferent. That is the nature of a pure devotee, that they're completely indifferent to any program, however good, which falls short of pure devotional service, because they strongly believe that pure devotional service is the only good that exists. Because Krishna consciousness is the only absolute thing. Everything else is relative, and it's contaminated by the modes of material nature. And pure devotees give no credence to that, give no importance to that whatsoever. So he effortlessly deals with all these members from other institutions very respectfully, but completely disagreeing with them in a polite and very strong, in a firm manner. But He doesn't get angry at them and shout at them and things like that. He's just behaving with them like a cordial gentleman. If somebody comes to your house, as Prabhupada says, even if they're an enemy, they should feel very well received. So Prabhupada receives all these men very clearly, very nicely. But at the same time, he's very clear that what they're doing is not going to produce any tangible result. And earlier on, we saw how Prabhupada is really dismissing the concept of social work that countries have. That Prabhupada says, you see a thing by its result. So although there is a lot of talk about social work, Prabhupada says producing hippies and criminals, that is not social work. Social work means the population must be very peaceful, wise, intelligent, and God conscious. First class men. That is social work. We produce some 4th class, 5th class, 10th class of men. What is social work? So Prabhupada is very incisive, very cuts through the facade of social work. Okay. Any thoughts, reflections, questions before we move on to the next chapter? Next chapter, we'll return to the impossible order which Prabhupada had given, the Caitanya Charitamrita marathon. Anyone would like to share some reflections? We just had the Janmashtami celebration, and then we had Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja observance. This is directly after that. So anybody has something to say or share?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Madhya.
Yeah, in fact, today we had the glorification session in our temple because there was not enough time on Prabhupada's Vyas Puja day. So it was really nice. So many people who have, joined ISKCON in the last maybe few months, they shared how they felt about, being part of the Janmashtami celebrations and how having got to know about Prabhupada and his philosophy, they feel so happy and really that this is the real happiness. So it was really nice to see that how, that new people are also being able to experience this happiness. Like when we read this Leelamrita and we see these American young boys and girls, so we can see that same enthusiasm and happiness in these people. So it was very, very nice. We actually have a continuation of the session today again at 5 o'clock. So yeah, that was something I just
It's always
share.
amazing to hear how Prabhupada changes people's lives. They come in touch with them and somehow their life gets transformed. It's always amazing to hear those stories of transformations, of how people come in touch with Prabhupada's books and come in touch with his philosophy. Of course, if they just come in touch with the devotees and the philosophy alone, we don't know eventually whether they'll hang on. But in every case, when they study Prabhupada's books, then they develop that irreversible sense of Krishna consciousness. Of course, you could say when devotees have read Prabhupada's books are left, yeah. But comparatively rather, if those who are steeped in studying Prabhupada's books are very firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, we had a couple of people who actually shared exactly the same thing because they had recently completed Bhakti Shastri. In our temple, we had a Bhakti Shastri for a select group of, devotees. So they said that even though they've been practicing for a fairly long time, but only after reading the books and doing it, in a very systematic manner, they really understood what Prabhupada is saying, and they felt that their life has really transformed because they've understood what Prabhupada wants and what he expects and his instructions. So that was very, very nice. And we also had another devotee, who said that a few years back, maybe a couple of decades back, he went to the US. And when he went to the US, his whole thing was, oh, I can drink freely and, have a lot of fun. And he said, but just coming in contact with Prabhupada's books and through Bhakti Vriksha, my whole life transformed. And then, he said later on, sometime, I think when he was in the US and when he was on the road, he met a couple of drunkards and, they said, why don't you join us or something like that. And he said, I was just visualizing that if it had not been for Srila Prabhupada, I would have also probably been like them on the streets, in the middle of the night. But having had the benefit of coming into the association of devotees and being able to share this knowledge, it has made such a huge difference. And even though being in the US, I have so much benefited by this, Bhakti Vriksha process itself. So, yeah.
Prabhupada made it possible to practice Krishna consciousness in any remote corner of the world. That's Prabhupada's outstanding achievement, that in any remote corner of planet Earth, we can practice Krishna consciousness. Previously, with that which was limited to India, he made it a worldwide phenomenon.
Yes, Prabhu, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Since you brought up this topic, these devotees who said that they've been practicing for many years, finally they have really begun to appreciate, because what happens is that unless we read Prabhupada's books, because there are 4 platforms of existence. There is the sensual platform, there is the emotional platform, there is the intellectual platform, and then there is the spiritual platform. So normally all spiritual experiences have their components in every platform. For example, the act of honoring prasadam has its sensual experience component. It could also have some emotional experience component if you're with near and dear ones or something like that. Unless we actually, when we honor prasadam, we are supposed to understand what exactly we are doing. We're actually honoring the mercy of the Lord, which is going to free us from ignorance. But if we don't get that point, then we'll just get absorbed. Although it is a purifying experience, all sensual experiences, any Krishna conscious sensual experience is purifying, definitely. But at the same time, all sensual experiences are by nature, all material experience, whether sensual, emotional, intellectual, they're all characterized by duality of good and bad and things like that. So although we may be honoring prasadam and it's a spiritual activity, the spiritual aspect of it would be strong if we are attentive to the fact that it is we need to have a strong spiritual experience. We get that strong spiritual experience only by acknowledging that this is the mercy of the Lord. Otherwise, on the spiritual platform. Otherwise, we are also experiencing a purified, bona fide sensual experience of having prasadam. But then, if we don't understand the spiritual, if you don't approach it from the vantage point of spiritual platform, then we'll get absorbed in the dualities of this prasadam is good, that prasadam is not good, and this is bitter, that is. Although we enjoy varieties, but we are supposed to view prasadam as absolute. That's the very nature of prasadam. Spiritual platform, everything is absolute. There's no characteristic of duality in the spiritual platform. But when spiritual practice of Krishna consciousness, we experience not just on the spiritual platform, we also experience on the sensual platform, emotional platform, intellectual platform. So what happens with these devotees is that those have been for many years and then they start reading Prabhupada's books, then they realize that yes, they had spiritual experiences, but they were mainly hovering on the sensual, emotional, intellectual platform. But the real absorption should be on the spiritual platform. that's when they begin to see, oh, this is what Krishna consciousness is all about. And what really absorbs us in the spiritual platform is Prabhupada's books. That's why they are the basis for all spiritual absorption. Because by reading the books, one begins to develop the right understanding of what one is going through in life, whether on sensual platform, emotional platform, intellectual platform. So the focus is not on the sensual experiences or the emotional experiences or the intellectual experience. The focus is on the spiritual experiences per se. I mean, they themselves are become the focus. And until one comes to that point, one can always tend to remain unsteady, because all the other experiences are characterized by duality. Even though one may be, Anand Prasadam, still, unless one is focused on the spiritual platform of seeing it as absolute, one can still get carried away by duality. This prasadam is good, that prasadam is not good. Let's find the best restaurants, ISKCON restaurants, and have prasadam there. So one can float a whole lifetime in these sensual, emotional, and intellectual experiences by missing out on the depth of spiritual experiences one can have. So that depth of spiritual experience one can have only when one studies Prabhupada's books. Then one becomes fixed on the spiritual platform. One becomes fixed on the fixed in Krishna consciousness, rather than getting fixed on the sensual component of the spiritual experience, or the emotional component, or the intellectual component. I don't know if I made myself very clear, but Prabhupada's books puts us directly in touch with Krishna. It's like chanting directly puts us in touch with Krishna. But even chanting, if we do not read the books, chanting produces results according to the desire of the practitioner. So one chant, I remember one Mataji, some years ago, she came to Mayapur, and I had not seen her for some time, although I knew her from Mumbai. So she said that I'm here, I'm chanting 64 rounds because I want my daughter to get into medical college. So her focus is material, although she's doing a spiritual activity. So even though she's chanting, she's doing it for attaining a material result. So that is the problem if one does not read the books, because reading the books puts us onto the platform of pure devotional service, where one chants simply in the mood of crying as Prabhupada says, the chanting should be like the genuine cry of a child for his mother. O Lord, O energy of the Lord, O Lord, please engage us in your service, and for no other reason. So even to chant properly, one still needs to be reading Srila Prabhupada's books. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada's books are the basis in everything that we do in Krishna consciousness. And unless we keep the basis strong, unless we read every day, keep the basis strong, our future in Krishna consciousness is always uncertain. Unless we remain fixed in Prabhupada's books, then our future is very certain.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. The thing is that many times we read the books, but we don't really delve deep into it. Like, this session where, we are also hearing from you. It gives us an option, opportunity to actually, go a little bit deeper than just doing a reading casually, as sometimes we do. So I think when we attend courses like this, because it makes us go into it a little bit, there are discussions, there is classwork, there are presentations and all that. We take it a little bit more seriously rather than when we otherwise just casually read by ourselves, or even when we read in group, it's just a reading without discussion. So we don't really go a little, deeper into the whole thing. So that's something which
so Krishna, actually, you're right, because Krishna actually Krishna's prescription is bodhayante parasparam. So the problem is this, that when Prabhupada, the way he envisioned interaction between devotees is based on the fact that we'll discuss Krishna Katha and philosophy in every interaction that we have. But quite often our interactions are, how was the prasadam today? How is your accommodation? All that is there, but that should not be the main focus of the discussions with devotees. Or how was your travel and what are the best ways to travel? That's not what our focus is supposed to be. When we meet up with devotees, we're supposed to discuss philosophical aspects of what we studied. Like Prabhupada said, write a realization, write at least one line of realization every day. So there is, unless we create that culture of when we come in the association of devotees, we should freely share what we read, what we understood, our experiences in Krishna consciousness, which we relegated to, I mean, that becomes the fringe, or that becomes an optional kind of thing. But rather that should become the main thing. How we got to the temple, how difficult it was or not, is not the real issue there. You know, how, whether it's raining and, you know, today I got an umbrella and, you know, I struggled like this and got to the temple. That's not the way. How does it matter how do you got to the temple? The real issue is, I'm not saying you means you, Mataji, I'm just saying generally. So how does it matter whether these things how these things are happening in our life? The real thing is how the Krishna Katha is happening in our lives. How we could read today, and this is what stuck in my mind when I read today. And if we create that culture of Bodhayante Parasparam, then our lives will change very dramatically, because there is no Bodhayante Parasparam. So our knowledge doesn't become solidified in the, so what we read doesn't become solidified in the heart. And it has impact definitely, but it doesn't become solidified. So this process of solidification is by Bodhayante Parasparam. So whenever I remember Dravida Prabhu, if you're walking, if next time they're in Mayapur and you happen to be walking on the same road as Dravida Prabhu, it's impossible to get by him without him stopping you. He'll stop you and he says, and he'll tell you, can I tell you some sloka? So he'll recite some shloka, he'll recite the purport, or sorry, the translation of the shloka, say something and move on. So that is how devotees are supposed to be. I remember when I was in the university, we used to have a notice board on the, I mean, several black boards or or green boards, you could say, on the walls of the corridor. So what would happen is students would stand, there would be chalk pieces also. Students would stop by, they would write something on the board, discuss it about the topics that they discussed in the class. So the whole atmosphere was of the discussion of what is happening in the university in the classes. So that should be our mood also. Krishna consciousness this is the university of Krishna consciousness. So when we devotees meet, we should have the culture of discussing the different aspects of the philosophy, what we read. Okay, today is Janmashtami. What are you planning to do in terms of what are your vows? Okay, you're chanting more, or your what service you plan to do, and what you read today, the appearance of Krishna, whatever. So there has to be the whole culture of discussing Krishna consciousness constantly. That is the sign of life. Krishna consciousness is not a social enterprise. Social elements are involved in it, but it is a spiritual enterprise.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. That's right. I think we need to be a little bit more focused in that area. Many a times we miss that point.
Mati, even if somebody does not ask you a question, like, it's not necessary that somebody has to ask you something. You can yourself share it. It's not like, okay, this is what I read in the Bhagavad Gita today, because it is a question of, so then whenever, like for example, whenever somebody meets you, they'll think, oh, she's going to say something to me today. So they'll also feel like saying something which they read or something, So it is like, it rubs off on people. So it's not necessary that unless somebody asks us, we have to say something. We can just say, today I read this and it was so amazing what Prabhupada is saying in the purport or something like that. So that stimulates discussion actually. So we should not just facilitate discussion when people ask us a question, but we should also facilitate discussions proactively by sharing our readings and our realizations.
Yes, Prabhu, I will definitely try and do that. I think it will be a good way also to remember whatever I read by sharing it with somebody. Yeah,
yes.
I think that's very beneficial. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for so we're into the fourth day of Janmashtami celebrations here in the UK, in at least manner, because it's Janmashtami Day Thursday, then Vyas Puja, Prabhupada Vyas Puja on Friday, then Saturday and Sunday, because it's the 50th year. Both have been festival days. Normally only one of the Sundays are festival days, so we've had 4 days, including today. So it's very nice. I had two quite profoundly touching and moving offerings this year to Srila Prabhupada. I found them incredibly enlightening. I thought I'd share the summary content with you. It's relevant to what we just spoke about in terms of Srila Prabhupada's books being the basis, and how it should be the cornerstone of our sadhana. To be honest, everything is contained within Srila Prabhupada's good books for us to be able to develop in our spiritual. Apart from, of course, sadhu sangha, that has to be sought in addition to, but the books are the basis, and this is quite interesting. So this is one of these obscure devotees that you hardly ever see, but hardly ever hear, hardly ever know. And he stood up and gave this wonderfully moving offering to Srila Prabhupada. And the summary is thus. I mean, I may not say it. I'm paraphrasing, okay? So the words are not his. I'm just giving you a summary of that. So he came into the movement in the 80s, and came in by having been given a Bhagavad Gita, read the Bhagavad Gita, and it transformed his heart. And the management in the UK, at least at that time, and the movement was going through some turbulent issues, a lot of sannyasis falling away. And he was told that he should take siksha or diksha from a particular guru, and that he is a pure soul, and that he's, the topmost sadhu that you should take shelter of, which he did. But that sadhu subsequently very quickly fell from grace in quite a dramatic way. And at that point, he was disheartened by the whole movement and the Krishna consciousness philosophy. Then he went back to the Bhagavad Gita and he read again, and he realized that Srila Prabhupada is saying is absolutely pure, nectar, and correct, regardless of what the practitioner may have been doing at the time that he had contact with the movement and seeking effectively sadhu sangha to increase his. So he went back to the books and made the books the basis of his sadhana and prayed to Srila Prabhupada. Soon after, again, he was told to take diksha from another guru. Again, was told that this is the topmost Vaishnava, topmost, and that guru also fell from grace dramatically. And it's quite traumatic to go through once, but to have gone through twice. His stability was Srila Prabhupada's books. He went back to the books again and he said, Srila Prabhupada, you took me through all of these ups and downs, and you gave me the foundation and the stability through your words and through your direct instructions to me, regardless of what may have been happening in your movement at the time. And I mean, it's all straightforward stuff, nothing magical about it, but it's so profound in that it reminds us how important it is for us to rely upon Srila Prabhupada's teachings and scrutinizing the understanders, because everything we need to understand is actually contained within his books. We may not be able to, we may not have the intellectual horsepower to understand all of it, therefore we should seek guidance, and that guidance may fall away. But the instructions are pure and nectarian. Bhagavatam is pure, regardless of how someone may preach it. The instructions are pure. So if we seek to find the truth, Krishna will make arrangements for that truth to come alive in our heart, regardless of what may be going on around us with particular devotee circles. We may or may not be. If we're blessed and have that high-ranking, sort of pure soul around us to give us a sadhana and shiksha and diksha and the guidance for the sangha, absolutely perfect. But if not, Prabhupada will still be there and give us that one way or the other through the books. And I found that quite profound. I thought it was very moving, very honest, and very direct.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, as I always say, whether someone has a guru or has gurus who have fallen, or whether someone has a guru who has not fallen, I mean, who's in good standing, irrespective of either situation, Srila Prabhupada is the supreme authority for all members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I mean, whether one has a guru in good standing, or whether one's guru or more than one of as multiple gurus of one's multiple gurus, even if they have fallen, still, whether someone has a guru in good standing or whether one's guru has fallen, still for both of them, Srila Prabhupada is the supreme authority in their Krishna conscious lives, because as you said, Prabhupada always has a way of arranging the life of his followers in a manner that they can achieve the highest success of life. So there's nothing to worry if we take firm shelter of Srila Prabhupada through his books.
So the second offering was, again, I'll not name names, but I'll just keep it discreet and short. The second offering was very different, profoundly different. Again, a very unassuming, very quiet devotee that I didn't, I've known for all my Krishna conscious life, more or less, but I've never heard him speak. And he got up and he had a fiery delivery of his not fiery. It was very, sorry, the words, the effect of the words were fiery, not that he was fiery. Okay, so there's a difference. He was actually very calm, very collected, very smooth, and really humble how he presented it. He wasn't, but the words were like, wow. So give me 1 second, bro. Sorry. So his offering was, because the tendency for one, most, I would say 80% of the offerings have a similar pattern of, rightly so, glorifying Srila Prabhupada and how his words or his association or his movement have changed the lives of the individual. And it's really nectarine to hear all the different perspectives of how people have come through. And many use that as a platform to glorify the work that's going on, past, present, or future projects, and some promotion of the projects, quite a large promotion of projects goes on, seeking Prabhupada's blessings, but it's effectively a promotion of the project. And he said, Srila Prabhupada, I want to make an offering and a prayer to you that we are in 2023 of your movement here in the UK, 50 years on since the Mana, the Gokulananda's installation. And 10 years ago, we had a 10-year review, or a review of where we stood to create a 10-year plan of where we should be. And this was done 10 years ago. And I'm saying this generically because I think it probably is equally applicable to any center around the world. His was specific to the UK yatra, or in particular that particular yatra. But I think that the message was quite a profound one that we should all wake up to. So, Srila Prabhupada, I want to offer you not the fact that all the things, that wonderful things that may be going on, which is great, but I want to try and offer you all the things that we're failing on, and we're continuously failing you on for not correcting ourselves by addressing some of these failures, or looking at these failures to say, how can we improve? Because all we do is keep singing the laurels of the few achievements, but miss completely the point of some of the very basis of the things that you wanted us to have moved on with and achieve. And the failures are catastrophic to the extent that they may be moving the movement forward in numbers, but not in perhaps in terms of the depth of the philosophy and the first class men that should be produced en masse through Prabhupada's movement. Because what we're doing is still not creating first class men, right? I mean, we're creating many good men, but we're not creating those first class Brahmins that Prabhupada was seeing and envisaging or hoping for. And it went on quite a bit. But what I thought the crux of this was to be able to introspect with what Prabhupada's wishes were and realign ourselves with those very frequently, rather than aligning ourselves with the path that is the path of least resistance, because that's what tends to happen with human nature, is to follow the path of least resistance. And if things are going well, you just let them carry on going that way, rather than sort of pulling back on the reins and saying, actually, we're going in the wrong direction. We may be speeding fast along a path, but if we're going towards a dead end path, then or going the wrong route, then it's that speed is of no value. It is better to have direction and be slow on that path than to have speed on a path that is wrong. And so these are just simple words. I just like to share these reflections. So we tend not to do these things so actively in terms of retrospectively introspect of things that are going wrong with how we should be correcting things that are going wrong, not just sing on our laurels of things that are going right. And I thought that was a quite a moving gesture of thought. So I just share that. Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry if I went on.
No, thank you for bringing that up. Actually, that reminds me that I had always wanted to say this at some point, but the context had never come up. Now that you brought up the right context, Prabhupada always taught us to see the good, but the problem is that not with what Prabhupada told us to do. The problem is how we do things, So if we need to focus on the good, it's easy to focus on the good if, as you said, if the faults, the faults are not being addressed. If the faults are being addressed, then it's easy to focus on the good. But if the faults are being ignored, and then ISKCON as an institution, we need to address our failings and do the needful about it. Then it's very easy to focus on the good. But focusing on the good cannot happen independent of, cannot happen at the cost of neglecting our failures. So that's a very important thing, that we don't just wave it as a slogan. Okay, focus on the good. Focus on the good. Yeah, but focus on the good is fine. All that is fine if there is sufficient action being taken to address our failings and to correct our failures. Because as Prabhupada said, unless we address our failures, he himself said this, we keep diluting the milk. After some time, you cannot distinguish between milk and water. Milk is going to become like water. So we have to address the failings if we need to keep the purity of our movement intact. So this, if we tell people to focus on the good, they will be able to do it. We should need to enable them to focus on the good. To enable them to focus on the good, we need to take actions to rectify our mistakes.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Sorry for my rant.
No, I think that was a very good point that you brought. What else?
Sorry, Prabhu. Are you asking me or are you asking generally?
Generally, what else? Anyone else? Or you can also say something if you want to.
No, Prabhu, I'm done. I think Mataji has a question for you.
Anishna Prabhuji, just now you said that for failings, we have to rectify them. So it is like in what level, how it should be done. See, personal level we can do, but when it comes institutional level, how it should be done.
Institutional level, we have no control.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between discrimination and fault finding. Okay, discrimination means you need to know what is right, what is wrong. So the slogan to say that, okay, focus on the good is not to say to abandon our discrimination. So what is right, what is wrong is wrong. So yes, we do not have power to affect institutional changes, but we cannot ignore the faults by saying just focus on the good. When people come to us and they have some problems, even institutional problems which we may not be able to solve, nevertheless, the very least that anyone would expect is for us to show the basic sense of discrimination between what is right and what is wrong. So if we maintain the principle of being truthful, which means accepting truthfully what are our failings as an institution, then I think we'll be able to inspire people, because at least they can see the principle of honesty.
Okay.
As they say, as I think Shakespeare used to say that, I do not try to twist facts to suit ideas. Twist your ideas to suit facts. So we need to deal with facts. Otherwise, you can't deal with, if we need to inspire people to take up Krishna consciousness, we need to deal with facts. We cannot twist the facts to fit into some ideology that we're trying to convey. No. We need to use our ideology to address the facts, but we cannot twist the facts or ignore the facts. Also, just a general point is that, I mean, this is just, I think most of us would have had this experience, is that we can see that somebody may be very good in their practice of Krishna consciousness, but they may not manage things properly just because they are not competent to manage. So there is a difference between incompetence to manage and the position or the desire to manage. Sometimes we quite often, not quite often, whatever, in different circumstances, not that a spiritually qualified and elevated person is managing by desire. It could simply be because of the fact that they've been asked to do it, and they may not be good at doing it. So this is also a reality sometimes. So we can't fault the person's managerial faults with the person's Krishna consciousness per se. There are many, it's not as simple as we think sometimes. Like we see situations where, I've seen at least situations where the person concerned is actually a spiritually very qualified person, but because he's put in a position of management, he's messing up things. I mean, he's not managing well, So, but it is not that out of his own desire he wants to manage, because he's been asked to do it, he's doing it. So like that, we could also have situations like that. It's not necessary, but in other circumstances, you can see that people who do not have the ability to manage, want to manage simply because they think it is prestigious to manage. No, that is something which is wrong. Something which is wrong.
I think there's an age-old problem here, Prabhu. There's a material analogy that's used in the commercial world that you promote your best salesman to become a manager, and you lose your best salesman, and you gain a terrible manager, because it's skills aren't all necessarily traversable within the hierarchy of a system, of a corporate or structure, including ISKCON. And that also is another fallacy here, that I think we see somebody in senior management position being given the pad of being a senior devotee. Those things are not necessarily congruent. A senior manager isn't necessarily a senior devotee. Senior devotee means somebody who is spiritually realized. a senior managerial post is different, and we use the two words interchangeably in ISKCON, which is incorrect. I've seen senior devotees who are doing menial tasks, but are so elevated. I would sit at their feet all day long, but they have absolutely no say anything in any organization anywhere. And are not involved in the management structure in any way or in any other capacity, but are so elevated. And vice versa, you've seen very, very senior people who are actually quite immature in their spiritual outlook in senior positions of huge authority, sort of managing over an organization which is centered around devotional service. So it is a problem. I'm not quite sure how one addresses that. So. You're on mute, Prabhu.
No, go ahead.
No, that was it. That was the only point. I was just adding to your comment there.
Yeah. I mean, also you see one character. See, sometimes that's why, okay, a little bit of training is required, but generally I've seen from my experience that those who are leaders don't need to read a lot of books, and they just have it. They just know how to lead. It's not like, I mean, I'm not saying that absolutely zero training is required, but generally it is not that if somebody reads a lot of books and takes a lot of management courses, they become very good leaders. It doesn't, the two are not the same things. Generally, leaders have it in them. They know how to lead. They know how to deal with people. They know how to encourage people. It's just there in them. It's just naturally there in them.
Again, the Western the commercial saying is leaders are born, not created, not made.
Pardon?
Leaders are born, not created.
Yeah.
You have that spirit in you, and you have that sort of quality in you. It is from I guess from a Sattvic perspective, it's a tendency and a nature that you've carried over, Kshatriya type nature that you have from previously, that you're able to utilize that guidance and leadership role that you have. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. Leaders are born, not made.
Yeah, I've seen it. I strongly believe in it also. The leaders are actually born. In the sense that, yeah, not that they don't need any training, but generally they have it in them. They know how to do things. Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we have some more time. We have at least another 10 minutes. Yeah.
This, you said that some they're in the managerial post or the higher post who are really they're doing it for prestige or for any other things. But even they are there, the losers will be the devotees who are there under that institution, wherever they are, maybe in the temple or in that center or whatever. Because when there is a bad management, which I have experienced also, because there are different people who are in a different stage of their devotional service or whatever. When you won't get the support from the higher authorities or in any sort or anything, they feel disgusted and they leave the ISKCON and they go, or they don't have, because all are not having that strong, the realization about Prabhupada or his teachings or anything, because they will be in different stages. So unless there is support, I have seen that many are getting frustrated and leaving it. Unless they are simply going either to some other center, because there also again they will have maybe experience same thing, or they won't develop at all. So this is what the repercussion it is having. So is there any solution for that? It means anything can be done.
This is what he's saying is truth. Okay, that we need to improve our management situations. I mean, how we manage the institution. There's no doubt absolutely whatsoever about it. But having said that, see, I'm not talking two mutually exclusive things. I'm talking, I mean, both things can be simultaneously true. So you please keep that in mind. I'm not speaking some mutually exclusive things. Yes, we definitely need to improve our management, the way we manage things, But if we keep the focus on training people to base their Krishna consciousness on Prabhupada's books. Okay, why are they taking? That's very important. If they take Krishna consciousness for the sake of having a nice congenial relationship with other people or whatever, so then you don't know what's going to happen. But if we try to educate people, the reason that you're taking to Krishna consciousness is it is going to save you from death. That is the real reason why people should take to Krishna consciousness. Why people should, okay, it's going to save you from death, it's going to give you love of God, it's going to, if we put our focus on that, because you can't solve institutional problems. That's not within our control. But what we can solve is to enable devotees to focus on what Krishna consciousness is all about. Because no matter how bad a temple president may be, no matter what the situation may be, once Krishna consciousness cannot be interrupted. Okay, now you may say, what about abuse and all that? I'm just talking in a generic way. For each thing, there is a specific way in which it needs to be addressed. I'm not denying that. But the principle that bhakti is ahaituki, it is costless and apratihata. It cannot be interrupted by some external forces or external people. No, it's not possible. So if people derive that kind of a conviction from Prabhupada's books, if they get that point, then they'll remain steady. Just like, for example, in former Soviet Union, I don't know if you've read the book Salted Bread. So our devotees were arrested and put in jail, right? So the bread used to be so dry, so they would just put some salt just to create some saliva, that's it. But they have survived Krishna consciousness in those conditions. There is nothing compared to a temple president being a little harsh or rude or whatever, these kind of, or badly treating devotees. I'm not talking about abuse. Let's not get into that. Everything can be addressed. I'm not saying no. But all that I'm saying is that, first of all, everything needs to be addressed. But what I'm trying to say is that we need to give people the knowledge that they are spirit souls. Nothing material can touch them or stop them from performing bhakti, performing devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead at all times, all places, in all circumstances. That is a conviction that we need to give people, because that is the real solution that we can offer people. We cannot offer managerial solutions because we can try to certain extent, but there is a solution which we can offer, which is to give them the conviction that their Krishna consciousness can be completely independent of their material circumstances. The finest example is Parikshit Maharaj himself. Parikshit Maharaj is being cursed to be killed by a snake bird. And if you see the picture of the snake bird in the Bhagavatam, it's very scary. Your final moment is going to be some snake bird coming and going to, kill you. And Parikshit Maharaj is so indifferent to it, completely indifferent to it. That is what the Bhagavatam does. That is what the Bhagavatam did also. So these are the things that we need to focus on, so that no matter what the situation may be, whatever it is possible. So I was thinking that there's no extreme example than Parikshit Maharaj in terms of the most gruesome death. Who can imagine a more gruesome death? Seeing a flying, or a snake bird coming at you and going to kill you. It's very ghastly. But Parikshit Maharaj is completely indifferent to that. This is the strength that the Bhagavatam gives us. So therefore, we need to focus on giving people that strength.
Okay. I try to do that one. I try to do that one as far as possible. Because I have seen many people who are getting frustrated, or I don't know, some or the other, they don't want to come to the temple. They don't want to involve in anything. They want to just stay at home and chant. But that's also not good. They have to come to the temple. They have to do association with the devotees. So because it gives the cascading effect from the top, it comes down like that. So who are really new or who are really just coming into it, they are the most affected ones, because when they see others talk, because they're in a different level, they don't know what to speak or what to say or what not to say. They simply blurt out their frustration when the new people, they come, they really see those things, and they also, they are really scared again to take up to that one, because they're in a really entrance level state. So it's really, really difficult for them to continue or to start or to at least explore it, what it is. So that is what I'm seeing, and I'm feeling really, really bad about these things sometimes. I know we can't change the institution, we cannot change the managerial level and all. But that's why I asked you, Prabhuji, because it's really, really difficult, because I also went through few things with those things. But somehow, I think because of your mercy and this class, really, I could strengthen myself and my devotion or my conviction, I could strengthen it, Prabhuji. But same thing, others, I'm trying to do that one, but still it's a little bit difficult. And I'm trying really for that.
So you're saying your personal example of attending the classes, right? So what
Yes,
is it? We're
Prabhuji.
studying about Prabhupada. So
Yes,
this is the point that I'm trying to make, that see, there's like, I heard one class by Vaisheshika Prabhu in Vrindavan. This is about 20 years ago. So, and that class made a big impact on me, because he said that, because I've also gone through various challenging situations with regard to those in the management. So, so he gave a class. He said, the holy name cannot be contained. Just chant the holy name. The holy name cannot be contained. So if you chant sincerely, then somebody will get affected by that. Then somebody else will get affected by that. Somebody else will get affected by that. Then somebody else will get affected by that. And before you even realize, the holy name has spread to so many people, you know. So like that, Prabhupada's books cannot be contained. So somebody is dedicated to the study of the books or reading the books sincerely in the manner that Prabhupada himself prescribes. He says how to read the books. So then it's not possible for the person to be contained at home. He will go out of home. He will want to give that out to somebody else. And then before he even realize it, so many people would get affected by Krishna consciousness. So again, I think that the theme of today's discussions have been that the central feature of Prabhupada's books. So if we can somehow or the other encourage people, okay, you do, even if you're not coming to, you do at least read the books, at least 1 hour, half an hour, whatever, just to develop that culture of reading. And then surely, the books cannot be contained. So they'll just cannot remain only at home. They will go out. They will try to give it out to others. It just cannot stop there.
Yes, Prabhuji. I try to do that. Thank you.
You organize some reading sessions online.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, I will do that. They're having anyway classes and all, but still, like, it is not that the class is very limited, very few people are coming. But when I see others who are outside the classes, who are new ones, it's a wide this one. It's not that all will come to my class or anything.
No, it's not a question of
That's
class,
right.
Madhi. Why don't you,
Yeah.
like, I'll give you a
Class
simple
or
example.
reading session or whatever. That's
No, you
what
try,
I'm
no,
saying.
you just make an attempt.
Yeah.
You don't know what the
Yes,
result will be. Like, for example, my wife was sharing with me last week that for His Holiness Jayaprakash Maharaj's health situation, first they did, she preaches to the youth girls. So they did a 24-hour kirtan, you know, and then the next week they did a 24-hour reading session. So when that happened, many people who are disconnected from Krishna consciousness, that reading session changed a lot of lives. And right now, as we are reading this proper Lilamrita, now I'm not logged on from my account. I'm logged in from my wife's account, because my account has got it's a professional Zoom connection. So my wife has used that to conduct, and she's not organizing this anymore. The girls themselves who read 24 hours decided to repeat it again, because many of them were so moved by their experience of reading the books together that they proposed it. They're doing it now. So you never know what the effect is. You may have a reading session in which one person may only join, but that one person may bring 100 people. You never know. So don't underestimate the power of reading. First of all, if you are not hopeful, you cannot change anything in this world. That's why Prabhupada says Utsaha. The Utsaha is the key driving factor for any success in Krishna consciousness. So you need to be enthusiastic. Yes, it is possible. You try it and it will work.
Definitely. Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a very interesting session today. All glories to Srila Prabhupada's appearance day. So we'll resume next Sunday. I hope I don't have, I mean, there is something which is coming up next Sunday. I'll let you all know if I'm not able to take, or at least I'll try to take for some part of it, maybe even 1 hour. I'll let you all know during the week. But by default, it is there, unless we announce that it's not there. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining. We'll resume again next week. Vanchakalpatarubhishya kripasindhubhyo patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanand.